You're listening to Interactive Wrestling Radio, featuring the Interactive Interview, courtesy of WrestlingEpicenter.com.
So what you gonna do?
Let me talk to you, dummies.
Oh, yeah.
You're where it's at.
If you're smart like me, you gotta listen.
And if you don't listen to it,
I'll come out of your computer and body slam your ass.
Don't be a Melvin.
I will scar you.
open your third eye.
Woo! It's gonna be cool.
Oh, what a rush.
It's showtime!
We had a lovely conversation.
To the interactive interview. Interactive wrestling radio.
The Epicenter.
The recording has started.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to this week's Impact Wrestling Media Teleconference. And this media teleconference live stream is presented by Pluto TV. Watch over 100 channels of movies, news, sports, and more completely free on any streaming device. Download the app today, as Josh Matthews did. Pluto TV is free TV. And with that introduction, let's welcome Josh Matthews with a little news update.
Okay, first of all, Ross, I've had Pluto TV for months, possibly years. So.
Well, it's probably just because I told you to download it.
It's a great day as we get ready for Impact Wrestling tonight. Just hours away from an all-new Impact. We've got 2 shows left in Toronto before we head to Mexico. I'm excited to get down to Mexico City. It's been a couple of years since I've been there, so it'll be great to be down there. And I had a great conversation with our Mexican television partners earlier today, and everyone is very excited about Impact coming to Mexico for the first time. But tonight, you've got Eli Drake's Open Challenge. That continues. Eli had such a fun time with the Open Challenge at Redefined that he's going to keep that going tonight on Impact. Joe Hendry and Grado will face the Desi Hit Squad in a tag team matchup, and we're going to find out who called Conan and King. Where did those 2 guys go last week, and what does that mean going forward? Moose is also going to reveal why he did what he did to Eddie Edwards, why he turned on his best friend. So we'll hear from Moose tonight. Also, 6-man tag team action. This is an all-Ohio affair as OBE team with Sami Callihan to take on Ace Austin, Zach Wentz, and Trey Miguel. This match, you may not know much about Austin, Wentz, or Miguel yet, but they will look to become household names, and that journey starts tonight. Rich Swann versus Petey Williams, a rematch from Redefined, where Rich Swann got the better of Petey. We'll see if Rich can go 2-0 against the X Division Pioneer. And then, of course, Sue Young will invoke her rematch clause, and she'll challenge Tessa Blanchard for the Knockouts Championship. That's Impact tonight and everything that we have to look forward to. And then, of course, this weekend, MediaCon in the United Kingdom. It all goes down at noon Eastern, live on Twitch. I just spoke to Sanjay Dutt a little while ago. He's on his first of 2 airplane rides of the day. Sanjay is making his way over to the United Kingdom, and he'll be there for MediaCon along with Scott D'Amore and your favorite Impact stars as they get ready for action in the United Kingdom. A match that I'm looking forward to on Sunday is Sami Callihan and Jimmy Havoc going one-on-one for the first time ever in a barbed wire death baseball bat match that'll be crazy and insane and live up to the hype of everything that we've been talking about for that show coming up, MediaCon on Sunday. Looking ahead, of course, I mentioned Mexico, the 13th and the 14th. Also, the 14th, one night only, Night of the Dummies, will premiere on Global Wrestling Network. We were up in Binghamton for that show. It was a great night, great show, hosted by Eli Drake, one night only, Night of the Dummies. And then just looking forward, then we have, of course, Bound for Glory in October. There's a lot of things happening in between now and then, but that's our next big mark on our calendar. Bound for Glory, Sunday, October 14th from New York City. We're going to be a part of the Legends of the Ring convention on the 13th. There's some other things happening on the 13th. We may run back Mario Kart for our VIP purchasers. But that's sort of everything happening on our calendar. Of course, you can go to ImpactWrestling.com for all the details on everything happening. And with that said, that's sort of your update from everything on our end. Ross, I'll take some questions now before we get to the guest of the week, Killer Kross.
All righty. Anybody with a question for Josh Matthews, *6. Please limit it to one question alone, and identify yourself and your media outlet.
Q&A session has started. To ask your question, please press *6.
This is Ian Carey with SE Scoops. Josh, on a recent episode of the Killin' the Town podcast, Don Callis had some kind words to say for you. Just wondering, what has your experience been like at the commentary booth with Don Callis?
Oh, hold on, Josh. I got to open your line up here. Go ahead, Josh.
I've had a lot of fun. That's okay. I've had a lot of fun working with Don and getting to know Don. We have very similar personalities. We text a lot, and he called me after All In. We talked about that show, or we talked about some Impact stuff. But I think Don he's great at being a color commentator. He adds a different perspective. A perspective that I wouldn't bring, that he brings. So it's kind of that yin and yang togetherness. I think it's very almost traditional where we go with our calls, but not like over the top traditional. I think it has nice gray tones to it. Yeah, that's great. I'm happy that he had some nice things to say. I'll have to go and listen to his podcast. Don is a very busy man, and I appreciate the kind words that he had to say. Great, thanks.
Hi Josh, it's Lee Med from Live Radio over here in the UK. Very excited about this weekend and Impact return to the UK for the first time in almost 3 years. We know the event is going to be streamed on Twitch, but what can we expect presentation-wise from Impact versus the UK?
Can you be more specific? What do you mean?
Presentation-wise, should we expect a commentary team? Should we expect anything spectacular in that respect?
Well, I think the whole show will be spectacular. I think it's going to be a great show, and we've been preparing for this for quite some time, and we have a new merch partner, and there's going to be a lot of I sent them something the other day, and they said, Josh, enough. We have enough stuff to sell, and you always like hearing that they have too much of something, which is really cool. So, new 8x10s that are very much MediaCon branded, UK branded, Manchester branded, posters, things like that. So I think the presentation, I'm hoping that everyone is left very fulfilled and satisfied with what they see from Impact and MediaCon. I know I'll be waking up Sunday and watching from my phone. Obviously, I'll also be watching NFL football. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't going to be watching that, but I'll be watching MediaCon from my phone Sunday.
And if they are watching on Twitch, as many people aren't able to get there, do you know if there will be any plans for any commentary? Should we expect anything?
I don't know if the team's fully. I know Sanjay's going and Scott Demore are both going. I don't know what the situation is, so I don't want to say that it's going to be those two, and then somebody else calls it. And then I think Simon will kill me, but I think it was the UK Sun that put out a story about how to stream, and I know that link lives at ImpactWrestling.com. If you go to the schedule of what we have planned Saturday and Sunday as it relates to signings, or just go to the UK Sun, and I think that all the information that you'll need for streaming and how you can watch it for free, every second of it for free, is available in that article.
Cool. Cheers very much, Josh.
Lance Larson with Last Word on Sports.com. With the success of All In, what steps would Impact need to take to be able to put on a show of that magnitude?
It's a loaded question. Those guys are all amazing, and what they did in Chicago this past weekend. I mean, my wife was a part of this show, and I talked to Cody Rhodes an awful lot, and I'm just proud and happy to know those guys and what they did. we're making strides and steps and going back to the UK for the first time in 3 or 4 years, whatever it's been, it is a big step in the right direction. Getting the show out of Orlando and doing what we did in Toronto, going to Mexico in 6 days, that's a step in the right direction. It's earning back the fans' trust, and I think we're doing a great job of that. I think that, you look at Slammiversary and it was critically acclaimed and it was a great show and everyone loved it, and friends of mine that haven't watched in quite some time said, I want to be on. I'm a New York guy, so they said, I want to be at BFG. How do I get to come to BFG? How do I be there? How do I get to be a part of that? So I think we're doing it. It's just one of those things where, and again, those guys have a brilliant brand of what they've done. So it's earning back the trust of the fans and letting people know that your hard-earned money is going to be spent wisely when you come to something like Bound for Glory. Our VIP packages have been, people love them. I mean, everyone that comes to them feels like they get their money's worth, and we understand that they're spending a lot of money on these VIP packages, and we want to give you everything that you can and have you leave an Impact show feeling like you got your money's worth.
Josh, got time for one more?
Yes.
Hey, this is Riju from Sportskida. So basically there's a lot of hype around Jericho coming to Impact. My question is, what do you think about him dressing up as the former Impact Wrestling World Champion, Pentagon Junior? I mean, everyone's talking about it right now.
Yeah, I appreciate you asking me about not coming to India this week, because you usually ask me that every week. So thanks for a new question. I thought it was cool. I mean, yeah, you're right. Everyone's talking about it. It was unexpected. No one knew he was going to be there, and Jericho shows up, and then you have our fans in Impact chanting, "We want Jericho." So, I said it on the call last week. I'm not going to speculate one way or another if he shows up or if he doesn't. I'll just hopefully be there to call it in the moment that we all see it for the first time, and hopefully provide the right soundtrack for if and when that does happen. But you can still get your cabin for the Chris Jericho Cruise. It's set sail late October through Halloween, and you can go to ChrisJerichoCruise.com for all the details, Impact versus Ring of Honor.
All righty, Josh, I appreciate your time very much. We will...
Thanks, Ross. I guess I'm sure you'll call me later today. If I send you the voicemail, it's because I don't want to talk to you.
What I was expecting. Always a pleasure for you to talk to me. We will move on. And with that, let's welcome arguably the most intimidating member of the Impact Wrestling roster, Killer Kross, who certainly has made quite a name for himself and a mark here in Impact. Welcome, Killer Kross.
Good afternoon.
Killer Kross, are you there?
Yes, I am. Good afternoon.
How are you doing today?
Great.
All righty. Well, welcome to Impact. You certainly are leaving your mark. A lot of battered bodies, bruised bodies, broken egos everywhere you go.
That's correct.
All righty. Aligning with the world champion, Austin Aries. Now you got Moose in your corner as well. Talk about a terrible trio. This is a major faction forming here.
Well, I told everyone things are going to change, right? And now they are. Not a very good plan in this business to sell people on things that don't happen. And you're seeing it. Things are changing. It's happening right in front of your eyes.
All righty. Well, let's. We got a lot of media waiting to ask questions for you, but I do want to ask, what are your goals here in Impact?
My goals in Impact are very simple. I want to hurt as many people as humanly possible in an expedited fashion. I'd like to become a household name in this business. I'd like to bring change to Impact Wrestling. And as of right now, we are on course to do that.
All righty. Well, with that, Killer Kross, we're going to move on to media questions. Media, if you have questions for Killer Kross, *6 to get in queue. Please identify yourself and your media outlet. And one question alone, please.
Oh, hello, Killer Kross. My name is Stephanie from Stircher Magazine in UK, aka the French Nigma on Twitter. If I say it like that. I heard that you are a huge ECW fan, and I wanted to know in which way it influenced you and the way you wrestle. And I'm now working with Tommy Dreamer on the House of Hardcore or Impact Wrestling. What it is to work with someone who was probably one of your idols. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. I would say that Extreme Championship Wrestling, to me, versus other professional wrestling companies, felt very organic, very carnal, and very violent. And there was something very magnetic about that program that separated itself from the rest of the programs that were on television. And even to this day, it's still very difficult for me to pinpoint exactly what that was. I mean, it's very easy to say that there was magic in the air. And anyone growing up watching ECW or even going back and watching it now can tell you the same thing. There was just something, for lack of better words, we could call it. ECW had an intangible that not every other program constantly had on a 24/7 basis, and it was also very unpredictable, in my opinion. In terms of who inspired me or idols, I would have to say probably every single person on that program, because there was a level of sincerity that was executed match to match and in all the narratives in that program that was very special. And I don't think it's ever really quite been repeated, and I don't think anyone ever will. But I would have to say, out of the few people off the top of my head to entertain people listening who did inspire me per se, number one would definitely have to be Brian Pillman, and I've always said that. There are things that Brian Pillman did in this business and outside the business that people still question to this day whether they were real or not. And I would have to say Bam Bam Bigelow, Taz, and of course Tommy, good old Tommy Dreamer. I miss him very much.
Love him too.
Sorry, can you please repeat the question?
Hello, this is Riju from Sportskida. My question is, if you had to pick an opponent for Bound for Glory, who would it be?
Well, because you haven't identified who you are right now, it would probably be you. I don't appreciate voices just coming on the phone like this and just berating me with questions. Are you a detective?
I am not. I'm Riju from Sportskida in India.
Okay, all right. Well, I digress then. Really, to be perfectly honest with you, I want to compete against people that the fans want to see me compete against. I think that's probably what's best for business, is giving people what they want. In the regard of hyperviolence, unpredictability, I think we can all agree, if I can toot my own horn for a moment, that we're hitting home runs in that spectrum, so to speak. But I would say for Bound for Glory, whoever the people want to see get publicly executed, I'm the man for the job. So whether that's someone on the roster or someone who's not currently on the roster, I would entertain all of that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Across, we're going to go to a question from Troy Vander, who mentions that Don Callis has mentioned your background as a bare-knuckle fighter. Could you talk to us about that period in your life? Certainly. I grew up in combat sports for an extended period of time, and probably since I was a small child, I vividly remember going to sleep in my own bed and then waking up maybe 5 a.m., 6 a.m. in a dank gymnasium somewhere in New York. There was collegiate wrestling. There was boxing going on. I would wake up to drills. I would wake up to sparring. I'd wake up and hear things going on around me. Someone in my family, well, multiple people actually, they were training fighters and training wrestlers. So I've grown up around combat sports since the very beginning. And you can drill stuff and you can spar and
You could compete in controlled environments. But until you actually apply it in a situation or scenario as close to possible as life and death, you don't really know whether this stuff works. And that's the truth of it. You could be a black belt in anything, but if you've never been tested for real in a situation or scenario, you don't know if this stuff works. And I just got to a point in my life where I really needed to know whether these things that I was practicing and learning could be applied. And right around that time, just as a coincidence, certain people in a gym that I was training in had asked me if this would be something I'd be interested in doing. And I really didn't have a very strong comprehension of what I was getting myself into, to be honest, at the time. So I just, without any apprehension whatsoever, said yes. And I was competing on a variety of different native reserves all over Canada and the United States.
Right.
Hi, this is Ian Carey from SE Scoops, and I assure you I am not a detective. You recently aligned with Austin Aries and Moose. I'm wondering what are some of your favorite wrestling stables in history, and if there are any you feel are similar to your current trio.
Okay. You did say that you weren't a detective, but do you operate in any sort of law enforcement whatsoever before I answer this question?
I assure you I do not work in law enforcement at all.
Excellent. All right. You just got to be sure.
I understand.
Wrestling factions. I really enjoyed the Four Horsemen. I think, as did everyone. I enjoyed all of the different groups of people that were there. Wasn't necessarily a specific four. I thought Sid and Pillman were awesome. I even enjoyed Paul Roma being there. A lot of people may feel otherwise about that, but just the very concept of what they had constructed during that time period I thought was outstanding. There was a group, the name of it is escaping me at the moment. You'll know what I'm talking about. It was Paul Heyman, Rick Rude, Steve Austin. What was the name of that group? Remind me.
The Dangerous Alliance.
Thank you. Yeah, I thought that was absolutely awesome. The Flock with Raven, I thought that was outstanding. I've always been a fan of probably the same things that other people were fans of.
Great. Thanks very much.
Certainly.
Hi, Killer Kross. My name's Lee Med. I'm calling from Alive Radio in the UK. Over the past few years, you've been given rather lots of pseudonym ring names, including the Tollman, the White Rabbit, the People's Executioner, amongst others. Which one of them do you feel sums up Killer Kross?
I always go back to the Tollman, and I'll entertain why that is. All of these ring aliases that I've been given, it's exactly what happened. I was given these names. These weren't nicknames or aliases that I personally came up myself. These are given to me from the fans and the audience. And I've always been very avid about paying attention to your audience demographic. They are the consumer. They're coming, they're paying. We're going out there for them. There's not a whole lot of us, if any, who would still be doing this if there wasn't a crowd there. So I've always felt if they give you something like that, I think you should run with it. And you should respect it. And the Tollman came about when I was in the ring. I had a mic, and I was addressing an entire locker room. It was actually in Las Vegas. And I said, all these people coming out here, they want to play the role. Well, guess what? Now that I'm in town, people are going to have to start paying the toll. As soon as I said that, the crowd started chanting Tollman. And I thought about it, and I wasn't sure if it was a knock or it was something endearing. And it wound up being endearing. It stuck. So I decided to run with it, and here we are, 4 years later, the Tollman.
Cool, thank you.
Good afternoon, Killer Kross. This is Mir from the German site wrestling-infos.de. I have a bit of particular question or specific question. There was a tweet which stated that during an event, I think of Impact Wrestling, somebody from the audience said you look like Alex Wright during his time as Berlin. Could you tell me, would you say you look like him, or would you even say you look better, or what are your thoughts about Alex Wright?
I have very thick skin, and it takes a lot more than people realize to rattle or shake me. I didn't know if that, again, was an endearing comment or a derogatory attack, but I always really enjoyed Alex Wright's work. Anytime I ever get compared to anyone else in the business, I've always thought of it as a very high compliment, because people don't realize the amount of people or ratios of people that attempt to break into this business and don't. And as many professional wrestlers as there has been on television or doing this in the world, there's probably been 3 times the amount of more people that have dropped out, couldn't cut it, got injured, or that you just never saw, never amounted to anything. So I have a sense of my own personal gratitude of being a part of this and being able to be in front of people. So the Alex Wright comment, I don't know if I took it the way they wanted me to, but I don't observe things in the parameters that you stated respectfully, whether I look better or none of those things are really relevant. I can tell you, though, that I really enjoyed Alex Wright's work, and a good buddy of his, Disco Inferno, Glenn Gilberti, is actually a very close friend of mine. So I'll have to tell him about that. Thank you for reminding me.
Thank you very much, Steve.
Hello, this is Carlos from Indie Pro Wrestling. Hope you're having a great day today. And my question to you would be, with you making a breakout performance out there in AAA, out there in Mexico, what would you say is the biggest difference between working that style and then now on TV here in America for Impact Wrestling?
In a broad way, because I think it's the only way I could really answer it, I would have to say everything is completely different in terms of style, from AAA, Lucha Libre to anywhere. I'm very fortunate to have an opportunity to be in front of those people in Mexico, competing in that format. But to answer your question directly, every single thing is different, and whether I will be acknowledged as a breakout star is really going to be up to the company. I've been undefeated in AAA for almost 2 years, and I've turbined through every single talent they put me in the ring with. Whether they were a legend, they were upcoming, anywhere on the card, I've always excelled, and that's the truth. And my success and my ceiling, I guess, in AAA is a very convoluted perspective, and I'll leave it at that.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Kross, we're going to go to a question from Gregory Power, who would like to know, what's the earliest instance in your life that you remember enjoying when you get to hurt somebody?
Off the top of my head, I would have to say probably Mr. Peter Williams. And the reason being is because there was a peaking point to everything that had occurred on that episode of Impact. We were building to find out who it was, and people were swerved numerous times along the way. And it was brought me a very special closure to be able to know personally that everyone else knew personally that it was me.
Sean Ross, staff of Fightful.com. Somebody actually asked you about Alex Wright earlier. You've been teaming with another WCW veteran in Juventud Guerrera in AAA. Sometimes he rubs some people the wrong way, other people he meshes with pretty well. How is your all's relationship, being that you've teamed together a few times?
Juventud is a great guy. I've had absolutely no problems or issues whatsoever working with him. He's been an absolute godsend in terms of someone who can provide new tools and new perspectives. I've always tried to integrate as many different styles of professional wrestling into my own style, and I would have to say I really, really lucked out having the ability to work with him, because the odds of that are just astronomically low. I've got a guy who has worked everywhere in the world sitting in my corner. I got nothing but good things to say about Juventud Guerrera.
Thank you.
Kross, we'll go to a question from James Garcia. He would like to know, who is your biggest inspiration, not just in wrestling, but in life in general?
I would have to say my grandfather, who's no longer with us. He was in the armed services, and he was probably the only human being that I had ever met, ever known, that was completely transparent, and he was exactly who he projected himself to be, from a moral standpoint, from a principle standpoint, from a work ethic standpoint, from a family man standpoint. I think people grow up in life looking at their parents and their family as something separate from people. And as you develop into an adult, there comes a certain point where your perspective changes and it opens up. And you realize that your family are just the same as everybody else. There is a probability for imperfections. Oftentimes, people don't see imperfections in their family. And that has something to do with the development from being a child to an adult. It's very easy to see imperfections in people in society growing up there outside the house. Well, coming to grips with my family being people growing up and not just some, special category up on a pedestal, it was a very powerful thing to be able to still have the image that I was under the impression of who my grandfather was into my adulthood. It was something special, and I think he set an excellent example for everyone in the family.
Hi, Lance Larson from LastWordOnProWrestling.com. With so much wrestling content available to the consumer, what specifically would you like to see Impact do to differentiate itself from the other promotions out there?
I think at this present time, respectfully, Impact is separating itself from other promotions as we speak. In terms of doing new things, more innovative things than they are currently doing, I probably wouldn't be the best person to answer that question. However, I will say what I do like that they are doing currently right now is the way they're spreading out the show between vignettes, between promos, between the action in the ring, and their comfortability with allowing things to just happen as they've been playing out on television, I think, is opening up new doors to creativity that will translate from the television to the viewer. And I think a lot of people watching can feel that. There is something, I guess how you could describe it as new. There's something fresh. There's a fresh feeling in the programming. And that has to do with everyone trusting each other. I think that's a very awesome element and a very rare element to have in a locker room, especially for a television program, in my opinion.
Thank you.
Kross, we'll switch to a question from Sean McMarksmick. What does a guy like you do to unwind in your spare time?
I go out hiking. I am currently living in Nevada. I like to leave the city limits, and I go out into the mountains, and I decompress. I turn all my electronics off, and I just sit down, and I do absolutely nothing. And I find it to be very therapeutic.
Hey, this is Riju from Sportskeeda again. My question is, you have a very unique promo style. Who would you say are some of your influences on the microphone? Thank you.
Again, it's going to be a bit of a broad answer. It's a broad spectrum of influences. I like to be as original as I possibly can, just so you don't wind up insulting the intelligence of the fan who's watching. I don't think there's anything worse to a fan who's watching at home than regurgitated things that they've seen redundancies, I think, really bothers people in their programming, which makes what we all do very challenging. But if you're in this and you're at this level, you enjoy the challenge. So it's definitely nothing to complain about. But in terms of my personal influences, I'd probably have to say Roddy Piper, Jake the Snake Roberts, Bobby Heenan, Jerry Lawler. If we're talking about mic work, those people have to be mentioned. Paul Heyman, to be perfectly honest, it was a level of sincerity that all of those people that I just mentioned conveyed in the things that they said. You never questioned anything that those people said. Everything that they said felt very real, felt very sincere, as I said. And this is what I'm always attempting to do when I have something to say. Just be honest and mean what you say and follow through with it. It's very important.
Kross, we're going to go to a question here from Good Guy Eddie. He wants to know, what kind of music do you listen to? Do you have a favorite band or artist?
I listen to a lot of heavy metal, and I also listen to a lot of new wave retro. A lot of people haven't heard of that. It's like 80s synthesizer. I also listen to classical music as well. In the heavy metal category, it's a very wide spectrum. I listen to progressive metal, death metal, black metal, a little bit of mainstream stuff, Hypo Negative, Danzig, Code Orange, Behemoth, Pantera, A Perfect Circle, Nine Inch Nails, Marilyn Manson. On the classic side, I generally just put the radio on when I'm in the car, and whatever's on is good enough for me. I like classical music. If I had to name a preferred composer, I'd probably say Bach or Mozart.
Stephanie from Steel Chair Magazine again. I had the chance to talk to Abbott not so long ago, and when I asked him who could be like the next Impact monster, the first name he said was yours. What are your impressions on it? And also want to thank you because for being a follower. So thank you very much.
My pleasure. Well, it's always a very high compliment when your peers or people ahead of you in terms of career success will endorse you like that. I always take it as a high compliment. And to be perfectly honest, that's the truth. I am going to be the resident monster of this company. Depending on your perception, I already am. And I look to continue to keep that ball rolling, so to speak.
His sentence is, Kevin Kross is definitely a custom-made talent for monsters. So I think it's a very good compliment.
Absolutely. Very much.
Thank you very, very much.
Certainly.
Hey, this is Carlos again from Indie Pro Wrestling. Outside of wrestling and wrestlers, I see that you have a lot of different influences. Like one of the most notable things that comes to mind for me is the Zodiac Killer. What other things inspire you for your Killer Kross character?
I've drawn a lot from novels. I've drawn a lot from movies and television. But to be perfectly honest, I really just assess what's going on in professional wrestling as a whole. And I attempt to collect things through culture, through society, through my own personal experiences, things that I can relate with, and I try to translate that into what you're watching. So there's a sense of familiarness, as you said, in what you're seeing, but it's also, you're going to see something that you're not seeing somewhere else. And I'm very, very weary of that. I try to be as aware of that as possible. I think it's, as I said before earlier, I think it's extremely important to provide people with if not entirely original, something fresh content. So when I observe how I can contribute beyond what is being asked of me, I go with that philosophy, so to speak, if that makes sense.
It does. Yeah, like you. That's what I really like about you.
Thank you.
Kross, we're going to go to a question here from Jay Bone, who would like to know, with the addition of Moose joining you and Austin Aries, do you foresee others joining your little contingent there, and anybody on the Impact roster who you would like to align with?
I would like to align myself with like-minded people, but I just don't believe at this present time there are very many of those. I could see a lot of people joining. I could see a lot more people jumping on the bandwagon, but that's going to be up to them. And there will be tests eventually, and it's going to be up to them to pass those tests. Now, whether they come before, during, or after, time will tell.
All righty, Killer Kross, I know your time was limited this week, so I appreciate it very much. We will wrap it up with that. I'll give you the floor for a final thought as we head into Impact tonight and about 5 weeks at this point till Bound for Glory in New York City.
That's correct. As for Impact tonight, well, since my arrival, I think it's fair to say that things have become very unpredictable and very violent, and you can bet your top dollar that tonight the violence will continue, because no matter where the time is told, in the end, everybody pays the toll.
All righty. Killer Kross, pleasure talking to you, and we will see you down the line. Media, I appreciate you guys calling in. We will be back next week. Next week we're looking at a Tuesday teleconference, and I will email everybody about that for next week. Thank you very much.
Goodbye, Ross.
Goodbye, Killer Kross.
Q&A session is over. Goodbye.